in post-processing, usually what I like to do is add objects one by one and looking at them carefully before moving on to the next one. So look at the deformations carefully before moving on to the stresses and so on. Here I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add a bunch of post-processing objects, and then we'll go to videos of me having a conversation with Andy about how to interpret the results. I thought it would be really useful for you to hear directly from an industry expert who is designing rockets for SpaceX, and how, and so Andy can give you insights on how to interpret these results from an industrial perspective. Highlight solution in the tree, and first is to look at the deformations. So say total deformation, and let's first add the deformation after the first load step, after the bolt preload is applied, and I can rename that. So I'll say total deformation at t equal to 1. Similarly, go ahead and add the total deformation at t equal to 2 and t equal to 3. And Andy will talk about these, how to interpret these. Then let's add the equivalent stress equivalent or 1 meses. So that gives you a single stress value for each infinitesimal element at any given location. That's kind of an amalgam of all the the stress components. And let's leave that at the final time. The other thing, and by the way, Andy is going to talk about how to look at the equivalent stresses and interpret or back out what the margin of safety of the bolts is. The other thing that is of great interest is what is the gap opening up between the mid-nozzle and the lower nozzle, between the two joint parts. Because we want to make sure that there is no gas leakage. And we can get the gaps by going to Tools, Contact Tool, and we want to look at the gap between the lower nozzle and the mid nozzle, so we'll deselect all the others. And then under Contact, I will say Gap, and again let me look at the gap after one time step. So I can rename that. So I'll say gap at t equal to 1. Similarly, you can add gap at t equal to 2 and t equal to 3. Go ahead and do that. And the final object that I wanted to add was if I drag the bolt pretension to solution, it'll add the bolt pretension object here. Okay? And that'll give me an adjustment, and Andy will talk about that. So, and I can go ahead and say evaluate all results. So we'll defer the interpretation of these results to the conversations with Andy. So you can save the project, and I will say overwrite. The results will save the displacements at the nodes, and it'll give you a bigger file. So if you want to get a smaller file, you can deselect results, and then you'll have to basically regenerate the results. So I'll save the results. If you don't have the results, you'll have to go to Solution, right click, and say Clear Generated Data, and then hit Solve.